Hello everyone. Welcome to the session 15 of Theory of Computation or Formal Languages and Automata Theory. In the previous sessions, we discussed about how to convert the regular expressions into NFA epsilon and how to write the regular expressions for the given DFA by using Arden's theorem. Okay, so these are the concepts that we have seen in the previous sessions. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the Chomsky hierarchy. Okay, so let us discuss this concept in detail. So first thing, before going to start the concept of Chomsky hierarchy, let me define the formal language and formal grammar. Okay, so here we are having the two words; those are called as formal language and formal grammar. So what is this formal language? So formal language is nothing but set of strings that are defined over alphabet set sigma. Okay, so set of strings that are defined over alphabet set sigma is called formal language. Okay, next, what is meant by formal grammar? So formal grammar is nothing but a set of rules that describes or defines the formal language, right? So as we know that the communication languages that we use like English, Hindi, Telugu, and other communication languages. In those communication languages, we generate the set of sentences by applying the grammar rules, right? So every language has its own grammar, right? So in the similar fashion, every formal language is having its a formal grammar, okay, from which the set of strings are going to be defined. So that is the relationship between the formal language and formal grammar. Okay. And one more point we can say about the formal language is the formal languages are recognized or accepted by automatas. Okay. So every automata recognize a formal language. Okay, and the type of the formal language that is recognized by the automata varies from automata to automata. Okay, so every automata is having a specific acceptance of language. Okay, so let me give one example. We have seen the finite automatas category, that is DFA, NFA, right? So the language which is accepted by DFA or NFA is called regular language, right? Regular language. Same is the case with other automata like push down automata, PDA, push down automata. So this is the automata which accepts a context free language. Okay. So if you observe the points here, the formal language changes from automata to automata, right? So here in this session we are going to discuss about how the formal grammars are classified according to the Chomsky hierarchy, right? So here in 1956, Noam Chomsky classified the formal grammars into four categories, right? So we are having a number of formal grammars, okay, and a number of formal languages, right? So, but we are going to discuss about some of the formal grammars and formal languages which are considered as the standard, right? So here in 1956, Noam Chomsky classified the formal grammars into four categories, right? So this classification of grammars is called as Chomsky hierarchy, right? So Noam Chomsky has given a hierarchy of the formal grammars, and that hierarchy is called as Chomsky hierarchy, right? So what is a formal language? Just now we have seen this. It is a set of strings or sentences generated by set of grammar rules, right? So as we know that every language is having its corresponding grammar, right? So for example, if we consider the communication languages like Hindi, English, Telugu, Tamil, etc., so every language is having its specific grammar or set of rules, right? From those grammar rules we are going to generate the sentences. Okay, so if we consider English, so English is having its own grammar, right? So it consisting of set of rules. So by using those set of rules, we generate the set of sentences in English language, right? So same is the case with the formal language. So in order to generate the set of strings defined that are defined over sigma, we use the grammar rules. Okay, we use the grammar rules. So those grammar rules are collectively called as formal grammar. So next thing, what is a formal grammar? So formal grammar consists of set of rules to generate or describe the formal language. Okay, so in this session, we are going to discuss about how to write the formal grammars and how that particular sentences are going to be generated. Okay. Next thing, how the formal grammar is represented. So this is the next question. A formal grammar is mathematically expressed as G is equal to VTPS, right? So remember this point. Formal grammar is mathematically expressed by using four tuples. Okay. So how many tuples? Four tuples. So four tuples, what are those? Four tuples. What are those four tuples? V, T, P, S. So G, as we know, it is a grammar. So G is nothing but it is a grammar. G is equal to consisting of four tuples V, T, P, S. So let us have a look on this tuples where G is a grammar, V is set of variables or non-terminals. So remember these words, we will discuss these words in detail shortly. Next, T is nothing but set of terminals, P is nothing but set of production rules, and S is the start symbol of the grammar. Okay, so S is the start symbol of the grammar. So here, if we observe, uh, basically a grammar consisting of four tuples. The four tuples are V, T, P, S. Okay. So what is V? V is nothing but set of variables. Okay. And T is nothing but set of terminals. P is nothing but production rules. So production rules are nothing but the set of rules that are written in the grammar, right? Or the set of rules that makes our grammar. And next one is start symbol of the grammar. So every grammar starts with one symbol. Okay, that particular start symbol is represented as yes. Okay, so these are the four tuples that we use to represent the formal grammar mathematically. Okay, next we will discuss this tuples with some example so that you will understand what is that. So let me take English grammar here so that you can understand this concept. So here you could see I have written sentence. So this sentence denotes noun underscore phrase space verb, right? So here you could see here this is a grammar rule which is having left hand side. I'm calling it as left hand side. So I'm having an arrow here, right? So this is an arrow, right? So the left part of the arrow I am calling it as LHS, and right side of an arrow I am calling it as RHS, right? So whenever we write the equation in this form, LHS denotes, the arrow is pronounced as denotes. So LHS denotes RHS, then it is called as a grammar rule, right? So here you could see sentence denotes noun phrase space verb. Okay, so this is a grammar rule, right? So next I am having another rule saying that noun phrase denotes article space noun. Okay, and next I am having third rule like article denotes small a or the. So this vertical bar we can call it as or. So here we are having a choice that an article can be replaced with either small a or the. So that's why I have written the rule like this, a or the. Next, noun denotes boy or dog, and next verb denotes runs or eats, right? So if you observe these five these five statements are all the grammar rules, right? So they are all the grammar rules. So here you could see that the grammar rule is beginning with one symbol. Okay, so in the left hand side of the first rule, it is starting with which symbol? It is starting with sentence, right? So sentence will be the start symbol of your grammar, right? So sentence will be the start symbol of your grammar, right? Remember this. So whatever the symbol that is present in the left hand side of your first rule, okay, so whatever the symbol that is present in the left hand side of first grammar rule is called start symbol. Okay, so sentence. So sentence is the start symbol. So in grammar, the start symbol is represented by a S. S equal to start symbol of the grammar. So sentence is the start symbol. Right. Next thing. Next, we are having V. V is nothing but set of non-terminals. Okay, or variables. Right. So just try to understand what is this variable. Right. So here basically, these variables are represented by uppercase letters. So in grammar rules, the variables are represented by uppercase letters, right? And these uppercase letters may be placed within the angled brackets. Okay, so this is point number one with respect to the variables, right? So what I have said, variable is represented by using uppercase letter. Okay, and next thing, a variable can be placed inside the angled brackets. Okay, and next second point is that why we are calling it as a variable means this variable or this symbol can be replaced by its definition. Can be replaced by its definition. The variable can be replaced by its definition. Okay, so what is this definition? So what is this definition? What is this definition? Okay, so here you could see sentence is a variable. Okay, why I am saying that it is a variable? Because it is written in uppercase letter as well as it is mentioned in the angle brackets, right? So sentence is a variable, right? And for that sentence, we are having a definition. So whatever the right hand side of the arrow that we are having, this is called as definition, right? So sentence is having a definition. So how we are pronouncing it? Sentence denotes noun phrase space verb, right? So this sentence is called as a variable. Why? Because the variable is having a definition, right? So while generating the sentences, you can replace this sentence with its definition, right? So you could replace this sentence with its definition. So you could replace this you can replace this variable with its definition, which is present in the right hand side, right? The right hand side of the arrow. Next thing, noun phrase. If you observe the noun phrase, it is again a variable, right? Why we are saying it as a variable? Why? Because it is represented in uppercase letter as well as it is represented inside the angle bracket, right? And moreover, this noun phrase is having a definition which is mentioned in rule 2, right? Noun phrase denotes article space noun. What it means? You can replace noun phrase with this definition, article space noun, right? Again, article is a variable because it is having a definition. Article denotes a small a or the. So article denotes means it is a non-terminal and it is having a definition. And next we are having a noun again. Noun is also a variable. Okay, and verb is also a variable. So if you observe this particular grammar, we are having around five variables, right? Sentence is a variable, noun phrase is a variable, article is a variable, noun is a variable, verb is a variable, right? So these are all the variables, right? So how do you identify the variable? Means first thing, they may be written in uppercase letter or they may be placed inside the angle brackets, right? And moreover, every variable is having a definition associated with it, right? So every variable must have a definition. So how do we say that a variable is having a definition? So if you consider a rule, that rule is having an arrow consisting of two parts, that is LHS and RHS, right? RHS. So always the LHS part is the variable, right? So variable denotes RHS means we can replace this particular variable by its definition which is present in the RHS, right? So if you observe noun can be replaced with either boy or dog, right? So this is called as a variable. So if you observe here the definition, a variable is a grammar symbol which can be replaced by its definition. Okay. It is usually represented by uppercase letter or within angle brackets. Okay. And next, if you consider this English grammar which we have written here, what are the V? What are the V? So V is nothing but set of variables or non-terminals, right? So sentence is a non-terminal, noun underscore phrase is a non-terminal, verb is a non-terminal, article is a non-terminal, noun is a non-terminal. So whatever the set of non-terminals that we are having, if we write it in a set, then it is called as V. V is set of variables. Okay, next. In this grammar, I have represented terminals in a blue color, sky blue color type notation, right? So here you could see the boy, dog, okay, runs, eats. So these are all the terminals, right? So terminal, what is a terminal? Terminal is a grammar symbol that cannot be replaced by other symbol, right? So remember that terminals are the symbols that cannot be replaced by other symbols, right? And moreover, a string consisting of only terminals, okay? A string consists of only terminal symbols, okay? And terminal is represented by lowercase letter. Terminal is represented by a lowercase letter, okay? Right. So here you could see article denotes small a or the, right? So a and the we have mentioned like a terminal, right? Small letters. Noun denotes boy, dog. So I have represented it in a blue color. So it is nothing but terminals. Okay. Verb denotes runs, eats. Okay. So runs, eats are again the terminals, right? So overall, when I generate the set of sentences, by applying these grammar rules, what I'll get string of terminals, right? So whatever the sentences that I generate consisting of the symbols a, the, boy, dog, runs, eats. Okay. So by using or by grouping these six terminals, I can able to generate the sentences, right? So how I could able to generate these sentences? By applying the grammar rules, right? So let me explain with one example. So consider that I want to generate this sentence like the boy runs, right? So just clearly observe this. The boy runs. I want to generate this. So first, whenever you want to generate a sentence, start with the start symbol. So what is the start symbol? Is the grammar sentence, right? So sentence, start with it. So we have to replace this sentence with its definition. So how do we replace this? So sentence is replaced with its definition. What is its definition? Noun, phrase, space, verb. So write that part. Noun, phrase, space, verb. Right? Next. So again, noun phrase is a non-terminal. So replace it with its definition. So just go back to the rule. What is the definition it is having? Article space noun. So replace this noun phrase with its definition, that is article space noun, and this verb will remain as it is, right? Next one. Again, article is a non-terminal. So replace it with uh, its definition. So its definition is having two parts, a or the. So based upon the symbol, based upon the word that we are having, we select the appropriate definition. So here the input is the boy runs. So the must be the first one, right? So appropriate word. So article is replaced with the. Okay, the. Next, noun will remain as it is, verb will remain as it is, right? So next, the is a terminal, so we cannot replace it. Next, noun. Noun is a non-terminal, so we can replace that noun either with boy or dog. So here, as per our input, we have to select the appropriate choice, right? So in the input, we require boy. So that's why the noun is replaced with its definition, that is boy, right? And the verb will remain as it is for this case. Next step, the is a terminal which we cannot replace, boy is a terminal which we cannot replace, then verb is replaced with its definition. So here the verb is having two definitions, runs or eats. So according to our input, we select an appropriate alternative. So we select the runs. Okay. So verb is replaced with runs. So the boy runs. is a sentence which is generated by applying the above rules, right? So what are the possible set of sentences that is generated by applying above rules? We can generate a boy runs, the boy runs, a dog runs, a dog eats, the dog eats likewise, right? So these are the various sentences that can be generated by applying the above rules, right? So here if you observe, what are the terminals here? The boy runs, right? So I mentioned that the sentence or a string consisting of only terminals, right? So the boy runs is nothing but it is a string of terminals, right? Okay, so remember this point. So string consisting of terminal symbols only. What is a terminal? This is a symbol which cannot be replaced by other symbol, and usually it is written in lowercase letter, right? So if we consider this grammar, what will be the T? What is capital T? T is nothing but set of terminals. What are the set of terminals that we are having? A, the, boy, dog, runs, eats. Okay. Now, so up to this point, you are clear with yes, that is starting symbol of the grammar. V, set of non-terminals or variables. Next, T, set of terminals or what we can call it as these are the symbols that is through which we are going to generate the sentences, right? Set of terminals. And next P, what is P? P is nothing but set of rules. So what are the set of rules that we are having? We are having 5 rules, right? So those 5 rules are collectively called as a P, right? Is called as a P. So if we write all those production rules, all those grammar rules inside a set, then it is called as P, right? So if we write sentence denotes noun phrase in a set, then it is called as a P. Okay, set of production rules. Okay, so this is about the mathematical representation of a grammar, right? So I have mentioned here how the grammar is defined and how the language is generated from that grammar, right? Next. So let us have a look on the first type of grammar, which is called as unrestricted grammar. So according to the Noam Chomsky, the grammars, formal grammars are classified into 4 categories, right? So first category is unrestricted grammar or type 0 grammar, right? So just understand this. Here, a grammar is said to be unrestricted grammar if all the productions are in the form V union T star V union T star denotes V union T star, right? So here already we know that V is nothing but set of non-terminals, T is nothing but set of terminals, right? So a grammar is said to be an unrestricted grammar if all the productions are in this form, right? So V union T star means you may have the combination of terminals and non-terminals, and next followed by v. That means you must have at least one variable in the left hand side of the rule, and next followed by v union t star again, right? So see here, the production rule, as we know, consisting of 2 parts, left hand side and right hand side, right? So this left hand side may consist of any combination of variables and non-terminals followed by a variable followed by any variables and non-terminals combination, right? And it denotes V union T star. So RHS consists of V union T star. What it means? In RHS, you may have the combination of terminals and non-terminals, right? And since we are writing a star, that means clean closure, epsilon is also considered, right? So if the productions are in this form, then the grammar is called as unrestricted grammar, right? And moreover, why we are calling it as unrestricted grammar means there are no restrictions on the number of symbols in the left hand side and right hand side of the productions. Okay, so there is no rule saying that these number of symbols must be present in the left hand side and these number of symbols must be present in the right hand side. So there are no such rules that are specifying the number of symbols in left hand and right hand side of the production, right? So that is the reason it is called as unrestricted grammar, right? And one more point is that there must be at least one variable in the left hand side of the production. So left hand side of the production, if you consider, there must be at least one variable, right? So in the production rule itself, we are saying that V union T star. That means at the beginning you may have any non-terminals and terminals, right? Even you may not have, right? As we have written as star, right? Followed by V. V must be one. That means at least one variable followed by any variables and non-terminals, right? So even you may not have any variables and non-terminals. Sorry, variables and terminals, right? So this is how we write the grammar rules, right? And this grammar is also called as type 0 grammar. Okay. And the language which is generated by this grammar is called recursively enumerable language. Okay. Or we can call it as recursive enumerable language. So the language which is generated by this grammar is recursive enumerable language, right? And this recursive enumerable language is recognized by a Turing machine. Okay, Turing machine. We discussed about this language and the Turing machine in the last unit. Okay, so see here, I have given one example. So see, the rule is having the left hand side and right hand side. In left hand side, we are having the combination of non-terminals and terminals. Okay, so yes, capital S AB denotes small a, capital AB. So this is one rule. So here in left hand side you may have any combination of terminals and non-terminals, but at least you must have one non-terminal in the left hand side, okay, or variable. Right hand side you may have any combination, even epsilon is also accepted here in the right hand side, right? Next rule, AB denotes BD. Okay, so A is a non-terminal, right? AB denotes BD, right? So for this grammar, how do you identify VT? What are V? So V is nothing but set of variables or non-terminals. What are the non-terminals? S, comma, A. That's it. Those are represented in uppercase letter. So SA. What are the terminals? So whatever the small letter symbols that we are using, those are called as terminals. What are those? Small a, okay. Next small b, next small d. So these are all the terminals, right? So these two are the production rules. So if we write those rules in a set like this, S, A, B denotes A, B, okay, comma, next A, B denotes BD. So if you write the production rules in a set, it is called as P. What is the start symbol in the grammar? What is the start symbol? Okay. So what is the start symbol? Yes. Yes could be the start symbol, right? Okay. Next one, context sensitive grammar or type 1 grammar. A grammar is said to be a context sensitive grammar if all the productions are in the form alpha denotes beta. Okay, alpha denotes beta. So here in this form, we are having the two rules. That means whenever we consider the rule, each grammar rule in context sensitive grammar, it must satisfy the two properties, right? So here first property is that mod alpha less than or equal to mod beta. What it means? Mod means length. So the number of symbols in the left hand side of the production must be less than or equal to number of symbols in the right hand side of the production. Okay. So that is the first rule. Number of symbols in the left hand side must be less than or equal to the number of symbols in the right hand side of the production. That is first property or first rule. Second one, every production must be in this form such that the number of symbols in left hand side and right hand side must be less than or equal to that. Okay. Next, the production rule should not contains epsilon. Okay, so the no epsilon productions are allowed in the context sensitive grammar, right? So if the productions are satisfying these two rules, then that grammar is called as context sensitive grammar, right? So here if you observe, it is same as the previous one, but there is a change, right? So in the right hand side, we are not having V union T star, right? So instead of V union T star, here we are having V union T plus positive closure. That means epsilon is not allowed in the right hand side of the rule, right? Whereas in the previous case, we are having see here V union T star, whereas epsilon is allowed in the right hand side of the production. But in context sensitive grammar, epsilon is not allowed in the right hand side of the production, right? So that is one change. And next one is there is a restriction that the number of symbols in the left hand side must be less than or equal to the number of symbols in the right hand side of the production. Okay, so if any production is satisfying that rule, then that particular rule is considered as a context sensitive grammar. That means that rule is considered as a part of context sensitive grammar. So this grammar is also called as type 1 grammar. Type 1 grammar. And the language which is generated by this context sensitive grammar is context sensitive language. Okay. So the language which is generated by this grammar is context sensitive language. And this context sensitive language is recognized by an automata called LBA, linear bounded automata. Right. So this is an automata which recognize or which accepts this language called context sensitive language. Right. So here the example you could see, this is the context sensitive grammar. S denotes small a b, right? So here you could see this rule is this production rule is satisfying the two properties. One is the number of symbols in left hand side must be less than or equal to the number of symbols in right hand side. So how many symbols we are having in the left hand side? One. So one is less than or equal to how many symbols that we are having in the right side of the production? Four symbols. So 1 is less than or equal to 4. Yes, rule 1 is satisfied. Next, second rule or second property is that the production does not contain epsilon. So here in the right side, we are not having an epsilon, right? So this is the rule that belongs to this context sensitive grammar. Next, we are having AB denotes BDC. Okay, so again it is satisfying both the properties. One, number of symbols in the left hand side is less than number of symbols in the right hand side. Okay, and next one is that there are no epsilon productions here. And last one, C denotes small x, right? So what are the variables in this grammar? Can you figure out that? So variables are S comma A comma B comma C. What are the terminals here? A comma B comma D comma X. These are the terminals. Okay. Excuse me. Next, context-free grammar. A grammar is said to be a context-free grammar if all the productions are in the form V denotes V union T star. Right. So what it means? So every production must contains only one variable in the left-hand side of the production, and you may have any combination of terminals and non-terminals in the right hand side, right? So V denotes V union T star, right? So left hand side of the production must have only one variable. Right hand side we may have the combination of terminals, non-terminals, or even epsilon. Okay, so epsilon productions are allowed here. Why? Because we are writing V union T star, right? V union T star. Next, this grammar is also called as type 2 grammar. The language which is generated by this grammar is called context-free language. The language generated by this grammar is context-free language. And this context-free language is recognized by push-down automata. This language is recognized by push-down automata, right? So how could we write this example context-free grammar like this? So S denotes small a, capital A, B, right? So if you observe on the left hand side, we are having only one variable. In right hand side, we are having combination of terminals and non-terminals. Next rule, A denotes BD. So again, A is a non-terminal. In the left hand side, only one we are having, and denotes BD. So two terminals in the right hand side. Yes, possible. It is possible. Next, B denotes small x. Okay. So these are the set of rules that are part of the context-free grammar. So we can say that this grammar is a context-free grammar. And next one, regular grammar. So observe here, a grammar is said to be a regular grammar if it if it is either a left linear or right linear. Okay, so if you want to say the grammar is regular grammar, it should be either a left linear or right linear. So let us see what is left linear and right linear. Here regular grammar is left linear if all the productions are in the form V denotes VT star or T star, right? So just try to understand this. So V denotes VT star or T star, right? So here a grammar is left linear means it must start with a, that means the left hand side of a rule must have a one non-terminal or variable. Next, it must, right hand side must starts with a non-terminal followed by a any terminals. Okay. So this is one possibility. A grammar is left linear if all the productions are in this form, like it starts with a variable, only one variable in the left hand side, denotes right hand side must starts with a variable followed by any number of terminals, that is T star, right? So how many variables are allowed in the right hand side? Only one variable, and that must be the beginning one. Okay, so V T star, or you may have V denotes T star. V denotes T star, right? So if the rules are written by applying this form, then the grammar is called left linear grammar, right? So here you could see A is a non-terminal, A denotes B, B is a non-terminal. So right hand side portion is starting with a non-terminal and it is followed by a terminal. So, or small c is a terminal, right? So this rule is a left linear rule. Okay. Next, B denotes small b. So B denotes small b means V is denoting T, terminal, of course. So these two rules are satisfying the given form. So that's why the regular grammar is left linear grammar. Okay. Next, now you could be in a position to define right linear, right? Say regular grammar is right linear grammar if all the productions are in the form V denotes T star V or T star. So here in the left hand side we must have only one variable. Right hand side may begin with any number of terminals but must end with a variable. Okay, so in right hand side it may start with any possible terminals followed by one variable. Okay, so if you observe, right linear means the variable is present in the rightmost position in the RHS, right? And you may have any number of terminals in the rule, right? So T star, so V denotes T star V or T star. If the grammar rule is satisfying this form, then the grammar is regular grammar, right? So see here, A denotes AB, okay, small a, capital B. So A is a variable, only one in the left hand side, and next right hand side starting with a terminal and followed by a non-terminal, right? So this is according to this right linear rule, or small c, small c. So small c, we are having a terminal followed by a variable. Okay? And next B denotes small b. B denotes small b. So B denotes small b means B denotes a terminal, right? So this grammar is satisfying this rule. So we can say that the grammar is right linear grammar. Okay. So just try to understand these two concepts here, left linear and right linear, because in the next session we are going to convert this regular grammar into finite automata and vice versa. So in order to generate the finite automata from the regular grammar, we must have a clarity on this concept, that is left linear and right linear, right? So just try to revise this concept before attending the next session. This grammar is also called as type 3 grammar, and the language which is generated by this grammar is called as regular language. Okay, and the language, regular language, is recognized or accepted by finite automata, right? So at this point you can say that finite automata that we discussed, DFA, NFA, NFA, epsilon, they are all accepting the regular language. Okay, so the language which is accepted by DFA, NFA are called regular language. Okay, and regular language can be defined by regular grammar, and same regular language can also be represented by a regular expression, right? So this is the relation between them. Next, Chomsky hierarchy. So this is a tabular representation of the concepts that we have seen. So first thing, type 0. So type 0 grammar is called as unrestricted grammar. So somehow it is also called as a phrase structured grammar also. Okay. Next, the language which is generated by this grammar is recursively enumerable language or recursive enumerable language. Automata for this particular language is Turing machine. Next, type 1, it is context sensitive grammar. Language is context sensitive language, and automata must be linear bounded automata. Type 2, it is a context free grammar. Context free grammar generates context free language. It is recognized by push down automata. And last one, type 3, which is called regular grammar. It generates regular language and it is accepted by the finite automata, which are nothing but DFA and FA, right? So this is the tabular form of the Chomsky hierarchy. So just try to remember this one because this concept is very much important in exam point of view as well as the gate examination point of view. So to answer these questions related to Chomsky hierarchy, you must have this table in your mind. And next, so this is how the Chomsky hierarchy is represented as a superset, okay, superset or subset form, right? So first thing, uh, type 3 grammar is called as regular grammar. So type 3 grammar can be a context free grammar. Okay, so uh, let me say here we are having a superset that is called as type 0. So in that set we are having type 1, next we are having type 2, and next one is we are having a type 3, right? So here what I am saying here is type 3 grammar can become type 2 grammar, right? But type 2 grammar cannot become the type 3 grammar, right? So that is the relation. Type 2 grammar may be type 1, but type 1 grammar cannot be type 2. Type 1 grammar can be type 0, but type 0 cannot be type 1. Okay, so that is the relationship. So if you observe, the type 0 is a superset. Okay, so type 1 we can say that it is subset. Okay, so like that is the relationship between the type of the grammars. Okay, and moreover here for each type of grammar we are representing the language that it is going to be generated, and next one is the automata that is recognizing that specific language. Okay, so type 0 means unrestricted grammar. This is also called as recursive enumerable language, which is recognized by Turing machine. Next, the type 1 grammar is CSG, context sensitive grammar. The language is CSL, context sensitive language, and it is recognized by linear bounded automata. Type 2, it is context free grammar. Language is context free language. It is recognized by push down automata. Type 3, it is regular grammar. The language generated is regular language and it is recognized by finite automata, right? So by using this diagram, we are representing that type 3 may be type 2, but type 2 cannot be type 3. Okay, so here uh, type 3 grammar may become type 2, type 1, type 0. But type 0 cannot become type 1, type 2, type 3. Okay, so that is the relationship, and that is about the Chomsky hierarchy. Then the next session we discuss about how to convert the regular grammar into finite automata and vice versa. So I think the concept is clear. Just go through the concept once, refer the material once. If you feel any difficulty, just try to get in touch with me. I will clarify all your doubts related to it. Okay. Thank you for attending this session.